Hello and welcome back. This is the part 4 video in answering that test question. What is the measurement of the largest angle given the three angles of a triangle? And so you can see here we had 4, 10, and 14 in the original question. I placed an X next to each of these values because X represents an unknown value. I don't know what this angle is going to be. That's a ratio of a 14. I don't know what the ratio of this 10x angle is. I don't know what this ratio of 4x value is. I do know that 4 is the smallest number in the ratio. I do know that 10 is the medium value in this ratio. And I do know that 14 is the largest. So I'm really going to be focusing, because the test question asks what's the value of the angle of the largest ratio of the triangle. So this will I'll be focusing on that 14x. And where we left off for that part 3 video, we know that x is equal to that reduced fraction of 45 over 7. Right? So we know that x equals. If I was to, let me bring us back down a second. I apologize for that. Ooh. If x is equal to 45 over 7, can't I substitute 45 over 7 for x right here? We absolutely can. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to determine the value of this angle by doing just that. So stick around with me here. I'm going to show you those steps in answering this particular test question. So I'm substituting 45 over 7 for that x that was attached to the 14. Okay, that's all I've done. I've replaced the x. If x is equal to 45 over 7, I've replaced the x with 45 over 7. 45 sevenths is another way to say this. Okay, and remember that x was right next to that 14 value. And when you have 14 next to a variable right next to each other, it means multiply. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to multiply. But first, I'm going to show that invisible one underneath the 14. If you haven't seen my video on invisible ones, please check out those videos. It helps to clarify a lot of stuff that confuses people in mathematics. So I'm going to put that invisible one under the 14. And when you multiply fractions, you multiply top to top, bottom to bottom. Okay? Before we do that, I want to show you what that looks like. 14 over 1 times 45 over 7. And the 14 and the 7 can cross cancel or cross reduce. Why? I know 14 is divisible by 7, right? That's just a fancy way of saying, hey, 14 can be divided evenly by that number 7, right? So 14 divided by 7 is 2. I know that because 7 times 2 is 14. And if you haven't seen it already, it's very important you get your multiplication tables memorized, because the inverse of multiplying is to divide. And once you get those multiplications memorized, division becomes super easy, right? Until then, it's kind of a challenge, all right? You can use a calculator, but it's kind of a challenge. So, 14 becomes 2. 7. If I divide 7 into 7, it becomes 1. If I divide 14 by 7, it becomes 2. So the 14 over 1 became 2 over the invisible 1, times, and 7 divided by 7 again is 1. That's where you see the 1 in the denominators, and I just rewrote the 45, right? After we cross-canceled, okay? So 1 times 1 is that invisible 1 underneath the 90. I don't need to show that in my answers. I could put 90 over 1, absolutely, but typically it's not shown. 2 times 45 is 90. So my answer in answering this test question, the largest angle, which we put together as 14x for this particular problem, the largest angle of that triangle with a ratio of 14 is equal to 90. Your answer is A. A is the answer. So what I'd like to do here and now is I'd like to show you. Well, that wasn't very smooth. Oh my gosh. I apologize for that. That wasn't a very smooth transition. But what I'd like to do is give you a idea of how to conduct an internet search to practice your new knowledge, skills, and abilities if this stuff is brand new to you or if you struggle in math. So you want to do an internet search for worksheets with answers. You want to always check those answers. If you got a problem wrong, go back and look at your steps. That's why it's important you write your steps clearly to see where you made a mistake. We all make them, trust me. Learn from that mistake, don't do it again, and keep practicing. You can get better, better, better. You can absolutely do this. So, type in worksheets with answers in understanding triangle ratios, right? Triangle ratios. You need to determine and understand triangle ratios. Okay. You also want to do a search for your triangle sum theorem. That's all angles adding up to, 180 degrees. Look for understanding worksheets with problems and answers on combining like terms. Solving one-step and two-step equations. Simplifying and reducing fractions. Substitution of values of terms. So if you do an internet search for worksheets with answers on these different suggestions, you will strengthen and build your skills, being able to pass those standardized assessments. Thank you for joining me. Math is easy. Take it step by step. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe.